Works Committee meeting, Counselor Wilkerson?
Here.
Counselor Gear?
Here.
Counselor Sims?
Here.
Counselor Nellens? Here. Counselor Hart?
Here.
All present.
All right. Do I have a motion to dispense the reading and approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Helms, seconded by Counselor Hart. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That is 5-0. 010220, request for updates on Green Springs revitalization, Mr. Squires. I heard that there's some painting that went down, I guess, for the bike lanes.
Yeah.
Somebody said it looks great.
Yep, we got that
That's
done.
great.
Yeah. Stone and Sons should be finishing up pending weather.
The loop sensors.
On the loop sensors, and we've got a couple more, which we'll get an update. We may be done Wednesday to get the final closeout date on everything. I know Stone and Sons is hoping to get in some of the ped poles, hopefully within the next 10 to 15 days, but they weren't guaranteed. So they did have a couple that they were replacing already that they had in stock. So, you know, again, our goal is hopefully by the end of the month, get everything wrapped up, depending on delivery of the ped poles and all that. There's a couple of striping things we've got to do going into the Publix section there, and also over on the Aldi side of the thing that we're doing with both of them as far as the directional signs, and then the on Raleigh Avenue, they'll come in and put the directionals on those two, as I checked. So, other than that, I think pretty much everything else, the sign down at Regions, that'll be going in, the rock sign, I believe talking to Brian Friday, all the materials, I believe, will come in for that. So the guys, I think we'll try to get started on the latter part of this week.
Will that be intermediate?
No, that's gonna be, if you're
On the
coming,
corner.
yeah, if you're
Yeah,
coming
I see it, yeah.
down, southbound will be kind of that corner. We have a large right of way right down through there. So other than that, everything else is pretty much wrapping up. Brian and them, they cleaned the lot up pretty good. They'll come in with a crew, probably a couple of nights, begin sweeping all the sidewalks and doing all that stuff. And then we've got a little bit of corner work down at Old Columbiana, where the guardrail and stuff is. They've got to finish up, the landscaping company's got to finish up.
Oh, that's right.
Just some kind of touch up and hit some stuff that's kind of been, we've had somebody went off in one of the medians, tore out the solid up that they've got to replace. So other than that, that's, you know, again, it's some of these items, ped poles are just, you know, waiting on. So other than that, hopefully, again, we'll meet Wednesday, so hopefully on that one, I'll get an update on kind of what things can close out on this thing.
You said the bike lane dividers are like the last step?
Yes.
They're not up yet, right?
No, they're not yet.
We were waiting on all the paint.
All the paint was gonna get in, and then they go to that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Can I hijack this thread to ask a question? Have you have any leftover stones from the monument? Can we take it, can we take it over, you know, exactly, the Green Springs into the Lakeshore Trail, that sign for the trail? Yeah.
I've got a guy actually, because there's several other signs at home with it.
Okay.
I had a guy just clean all the signs.
Okay, yep.
And we've got probably 4 or 5 that have got missing stones on them. So I've got a guy that's gonna price them for me this September, redoing, or kind of filling in all the ones that's been broken off and all that. So there won't be enough on that one to do. I know it's over.
You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
I got a guy that's going around, he's gonna go to every sign and kind of do,
Clean them up, fix them, yeah.
just kind of fix, you know,
Refurbish.
price and what it costs to put the stones back in and, you know, put the creek behind them and set them. So hopefully I'll have it before budget time, but I don't think it'll be a whole lot. There's just some of them missing 1 or 2 here and there, so.
Jane thinks they were geocaching or something in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. The only other feedback I got really was on Green Springs, I guess eastbound. Is the striping that's there, is that permanent or is some of that temporary? I know you said the directionals still have to come in, but I think the question was whether or not some of that could be shifted. The westbound side coming off of Green Springs onto Raleigh is still pretty wide turning left there, and people have been, obviously you know about this, have been asking for a stripe to delineate and encourage people to move over to the left if they were going straight or left, and allow
is right
Okay.
there. I mean, if they get in the right turn lane and keep, you know, when traffic allows to keep it going, it'll flow better, but.
Yeah, yeah.
To answer your question, it's just tight, it's just tight there, but that's
Right.
why it can go.
Okay.
For them.
I probably should look at the phase two renderings again. The answer's probably in there, but what about the bike lane segment between Raleigh and Broadway? Is there?
That'll be in that next phase. That takes us down to the walking trail. If you're gonna remember, we kind of pared back a little bit with cost, but that comes in the second phase that we'll do, that'll take us across Lake Shore and tie us into the walking trail down there.
Okay, so Raleigh to Broadway bike lanes is not in this project?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and pull, but I don't.
I just,
Not the second.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
see it, you know, getting done and everything else is wrapping up, so
Yeah.
looking that way, I just.
But
wanna
I'll
confirm.
make sure, because we went back, you remember, we took out some of the paving in that little section there that we'll grab in the second phase.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look, but I wanna say the striping company, other than those couple of turn-ins, is just about complete, but I'll verify on Wednesday to make sure, but I wanna say, for some reason or another, I'm stuck that if we put that in phase two, when we connect down there across Lake Shore, all that was gonna go basically from Raleigh down through there. But I'll verify for you and let you know for sure.
That's great, thanks.
All right, we'll just carry that one over. Next item under old business is 150622, request for permission to work within the right of way on Reese Street, 16th Street, and alleys surrounding 1707 Reese Street. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, so I received, the presentation earlier today, I sent it out to everyone, and Brian's got it up. So at this point, I'm gonna turn it over to Mark, or, yeah, right.
Have you not,
Planning commission, planning. Planning commission.
I don't know if you'll be able to read it if I sign it.
Trent was a big person.
So, hey, Alex and Kale, is that accurate rezoning?
No, it's not a rezoning, it's
Okay.
just for, permission to work within the right of way.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Lynn Shannon, or Shannon Walshak, and before Mark gets up here and talks specifically about the right-of-way, I thought I'd spend just a minute and sort of give you a vision of how we arrived at this plan. We have been working on this for 4 years. We've worked with 2 administrations here. There was a new mayor, and we want to make sure he got buy-in. We've looked at different development schemes. We've hired Lewis Niquette to come up with a plan. And we analyzed going vertical, which doesn't seem to be very popular in Homewood. And then at the end of the day, we've said, oh, let's develop something here, retail, that looks like it's been here the whole time, just like downtown Homewood. So this is sort of a quick snapshot of that. This is Hall Daniels Vet Clinic. This is Reese Street. This is Little Donkey, former Donkey. And so we're proposing to activate a right-of-way there for an entrance, as well as off a one-way here. And go to the next slide. So you can remember, this is sort of bird's eye view. Talked with Exceptional Foundation. They're excited about the activation and their access. They need some surplus parking at night. We're not going to be here. I'm sorry, Bell Center. Sorry.
Where's the Bell Center in the back?
It's right above 2.
You said the Bell Center.
Right, okay. Thank you.
What's the
Thank you.
next slide? This is a computer model of the exterior. It'll look a lot prettier, but that's sort of a computer model.
Let's look at from Central down.
Yeah, this is the curb cut that's there right now. It goes into the right of way, into the clinics. Let's do the.
So is this a street that's not there, right there that we're looking at?
Correct.
That's by the dental office?
Yes.
Correct.
And I do have a question about that, because having been out there a bunch, you know, there's a huge deep ravine back there behind, and this obviously doesn't show that. So what's the plan for that ravine? What's gonna happen? Because I can't imagine that's not a huge cost to fill that thing in.
Well, that's his problem.
Okay.
No, let's go forward a couple slides here.
Yeah, this is the render, real quick. The idea is to have just some long strip centers that all stucco in the same blue awning, is to have just like the shops in downtown Homewood. But every building was almost built differently by a different owner. And we just feel like that has the charm that's so special at Homewood. All right, go to the next slide. Here you go. Okay.
So, that shows you what we're trying to do, you know, we're trying to open up the street, 28th Street, right, 28th Court right there. Right now, it is used for a makeshift parking lot. It's not formalized by any means. For the dentist that is on the corner right here, the access to the veterinary clinics to the north. What we've done here, we've changed our site plan slightly. Kel recognized that when I submitted to him, to maximize the number of parking spaces that we could get into that right of way, to the maximum number that could possibly formalize into a formal roadway, driveway, parking lot type of situation. We're asking for the 7 parking spaces that you see at the top on Reese Street to be added there, you know, to access the site. And then we are adding parking or improving the alley to the rear and adding the parking that you can see in the back of the alley. Oh, thank you. So again, maximizing all the usable land that we have here, who asked about the walls? You did.
Well, no, I asked
No,
about
the drainage.
the
yes.
ravine, yes.
Okay, let's go to the next one. This shows what we're planning to do. Right now, the culvert drops here, goes open ditch through here, piped underneath a little tiny bit of land, tiny little pipe right here, and then drops back in and goes underneath the building here. We'll keep the water in the drainage ways that it exists today. We're able to reroute it, dump it back into the drainage way where it exists today. We'll get a retaining wall along here, retaining wall along here, and retaining wall here that will keep our site contained within the right of ways and on our site. Okay. But as far as changing anything, as far as the drainage goes, extension of the same box culvert, same size that we're looking at that comes onto the site. This location here, this location here. On site, we'll go provide underground and stormwater management to meet or exceed everything that the city's code requirements require, and we'll reintroduce it back into probably in the box culvert. Well, we're in the box culvert right there.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kale.
Yes.
There's Kale. I feel like we are really out of order here. What is this property zoned? Like, I feel like we're missing
C4.
steps here. Okay, it is zone C4, okay. So there doesn't need to be any rezoning.
It says a rezoning presentation.
It does, that's just they came up with that, it's zone C4.
Okay. What about our sidewalks on Reeks that are our project? How do those on the upper end, those 7 spaces up on top, impact our?
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Just because my question has to do with what you
Yes,
just said.
yes,
And
okay, yeah.
I've got questions about Reese Street too,
Okay.
right? But if I could stick with this for
Yes.
just a second. So are you planning on only filling in the ravine for the right of way and the retaining walls, and it'll be open on the other side of the retaining walls?
Correct.
So Brian, can you go back a couple, keep going? Okay, so that's not really what it's gonna look like.
Well, that is the ditch right there. That is a planned view of the ditch right there. That's what it looks like today. But that's the retaining wall that I'm planning on doing. That's the retaining wall and the other retaining walls here. So that ditch comes down through here, comes through here, comes through here, and then goes underneath that building right there.
Right, so where there are trees put in right here, that's the ravine on the backside of the
That's
dentist's
the
office.
ravine right here, yes.
Okay.
Those are existing trees.
Got it, so you're not proposing to fill in everything?
No, sir.
Just the part of
Just
the
the
road?
part where the road will go on.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and can I ask a question too, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So 28 Court, the road that doesn't exist, that you're proposing to exist, because those are angled parking spaces going this way, I assume you have that designed as a one-way street going in?
No, we have it designed as a 2-way. I was hoping that these people would, you know, I see most of the traffic coming this direction here into this, servicing this, so I angled it this way to accommodate this kind of traffic, this traffic flow, because I felt like that was more than people trying to come here and turn like that.
Okay, so.
So you have that road emptying out onto Central?
Central?
Yes, it comes this way as well. You can come here, turn left, turn right. on the
Okay, so
center.
I got 2 questions with that.
Go ahead.
One, how are those people that are parked angled going in gonna come back out to go that way?
I was expecting these folks to go ahead and leave this direction, we'd have to go down Reese.
All right, so if you're expecting that, then what's the need for the 2-way street right there?
Right now Reese is one way this direction here, okay? And anybody that's in this parking lot here or this parking lot here, I was expecting them to come out that way, but I felt like there would be some traffic that would want to turn left on Central.
Excuse me. So,
Turn left on Central, excuse me.
yes, so the whole reason that Reese is one way is because of the nightmare created by people trying to do exactly what you're saying, which is come out of Reese and turn left onto Central, right there at that curve. It was a sight distance, dangerous situation, which is why we decided to one-way it going toward 18. So basically what you're proposing with no traffic signal at all is to do the exact same thing right here, which I personally just don't, I mean, it's the exact reason we chose to make Reese go the other direction.
And that's, like I said, I feel like we're doing everything out of order. Like, what about public safety? Like, why haven't we had this discussion? We're gonna discuss this. We haven't even.
Why is this
We haven't
this
settled
meeting?
what's
So
happening
the
on the
only-
vacation.
So
with them in-
just to be clear, the only request they have to make is request to work in the right of way.
To create that road right there?
Create that road right there. So this is the appropriate time to discuss exactly what we are discussing.
But
Except
we
that
haven't
we
settled the
didn't-
Manicus.
It hasn't been presented that way so far.
I didn't mean to, what I meant was the subject of public safety is part of this discussion. If we don't think that it is, you follow me? If we don't
Everything
think
is-
that can be a safe thing to do, then we wouldn't grant them the permission to work in the right of way.
Okay, but again, out of order, because the Manicosas, and no, I'm saying their name wrong, have a request that we haven't had a public hearing on yet.
This is a right of way.
So,
On the vacation
That-
for the.
so those are 2 separate requests. And they play in with each other. I can't tell you which one the Maniscalcos are gonna like better or worse between these parking spaces versus what they got now versus what they're asking for.
Are those public?
Those are on a public right of way, yes, so those would be public
Okay,
spaces.
I got it, okay.
You follow me?
Yes,
But
I am. Okay.
again, my biggest concern is not of that and not of any of the other. My concern is that 2-way street, I just don't see how that,
This 2-way.
yes, I don't see how that
Hey, Mark,
works.
Yes, sir.
is there any way in that, if you made it one way, could you add more parking on that side? If you
No, we
went in on one way?
maximize the parking in there, you know. It might get one more parking space if we went to 90° on it, but we can check the sight distance here to make sure there's a sight distance. I have not checked it. I'll admit that sitting here in front of this count. Excuse me?
It's a two.
Okay, I didn't turn it on.
Yes, I know. To
I'm
make it
sorry.
Oh.
But we can check
If it's
sight
a one
distance,
way.
and then, you know, I would ask
could be
Lynn's
parallel.
opinion on, you know, as far as what that means, as far as turning it into a one-way street.
I will tell you that I think there is probably going to be a pretty good amount of discomfort about
Yeah.
traffic coming out onto Central on that street. There are other issues, there are other considerations that the council may want to consider as well, but I would tell you, I think there's going to be a good bit of discomfort with traffic coming out onto Central.
Yeah, sitting
on
here
that
right
street.
now, I don't see how that is a safe thing to do without any kind of signal right there. And listen, nobody wants a traffic signal right there.
Is it a concern the right-hand turnout or the left-hand turn across?
I think the
It's the
concern is
left-hand
traffic
turn.
coming out that way.
Yeah, I think traffic coming out that way, period, but certainly the left-hand turn going over onto Central. With the median and the trees
Coming from here to
and the
here.
curve that's right over here.
Who?
Yes.
So we're concerned about this turn here.
I mean, we're really concerned about traffic
Wait.
coming in, yes.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, I think there's concern about traffic coming out, period. I don't care
Yes.
which way it's turning.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. One is sight distance and safety and what we've already experienced with Reese. One is the amount of congestion that can cause on Central. And one is what Mr. Gwaltney just noted, which is this is the intersection for the fire department.
Right.
And so creating a great deal of congestion there, I think is something that will cause a good bit of concern.
Yes. Because, I mean, the fire department's right across here, they come
Right.
directly out onto there, I just don't think, yeah, I don't think that's gonna be
think we'd be open to, I mean, that is, we need to know in a second, but we figured those two guys aren't using it, and that vet clinic is as busy as a 7-Eleven. So I don't think that ever occurred to us as being an issue back here yet. So I think we'd be willing to amend it to make it a one-way in.
I mean, that would certainly,
The more parking you can fit in that thing, the better.
Actually, if I'm gonna make it a one-way, I'm gonna keep it angled just like it is, and that's the maximum number of parts we can get rid of. Well, no, because it's.
Back up?
Well, because this distance right here is just barely enough
Yeah.
to make sure that we can get these guys backed out and go that direction,
Yes.
so.
Well, if
If it was
that's
a
the
two-way,
case, then I'm gonna have
they still gotta
additional
back out.
concern of, is it really wide enough for two-way street if we can't put parallel spots on that
Right.
side?
If you put parallel spots, you take this thing
We're
out.
not doing it.
Right.
I think this was the architect's version. Hopefully it's to somewhat the scale.
This is, yeah. We can actually get what we got shown, shown.
You just need to know the distance between the average parking space and the line, the back of the car.
That's 24 feet right there.
That's 24 feet.
That's right. And that's the standard
If you
stall.
have a travel lane of 11 feet, then you should have the remaining.
I think the question is, if it goes to a one-way, could you put parallel spaces on the other side?
Parallel on this side? We can look at that.
Let's,
It was just, I think the biggest thing is to maximize the parking spaces that would be a benefit to
Available to
everybody that's
these
involved.
guys, these guys.
well, and then also your customers
Right,
that
I
are
agree.
going, yeah, that are going in
Absolutely.
there, for
I
sure.
think about my mom and my daughters and myself. I'm not a big parallel parker myself.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
There's Suburbans and.
I mean, the good news is, for people parking,
It's one way in.
yeah,
Takes
I mean,
time,
yeah,
but I
it's one
can
way
do it.
in, so you're gonna drive straight into the space ostensibly. I mean, I guess there could be situations where you have to back out, but, you know, hopefully you deal with it. But if it's a one-way street, it seems like maybe there could be a possibility of getting a few spaces over here on this curve, parallel spots over
We'll
there.
study that.
Okay.
Perhaps no problem.
So there's 14 spaces on the right side of the
14 spaces, we've allowed for the front door and the power access to the dentist, so that we take into consideration his access to his building. We got enough room to get a little sidewalk in here, and then we connect all this sidewalk that we have here in central to the development, as you can see right there.
And then what about Reed Street sidewalks?
Oh, go back 2 slides. Who's got the slides?
Right.
You guys are doing something along here and something over here, and so we're
We're
considering.
doing something along the whole street.
You're right, but I mean, I'm just talking about in the area where we're down. So
Okay.
here, and you going down here quite some distance, I agree. What we would do is pick you up here, bring you back and bring you along the front facade to engage this development with what's walking along the front of Reese and tie you right back in right here. I know we've got some lighting we gotta look at and things of that nature, but we would try and use the same lighting standards that you're using through here in this area here, so that it becomes
Yeah.
coherent.
Yeah.
It'll make sense.
So let me ask this, but the not parallel, the angled parking that's over here on the side of this building on the Reese Street side, are those on y'all's property or are those in city?
So
would those be
drawing
in
had it
city?
split, so
Go
they'd
back
have to be
to
public.
the 4th slide. I think it's 4th.
It's primarily on there.
Go one more.
Okay.
One more.
It's the other way.
You can see the property line right there.
Okay,
So
so
we just-
they're
we-
kinda.
we just had a
half and half.
similar-
They're half and half, yes.
Okay.
We just had a similar issue with the redevelopment. Which bank? Is it Trustmark? It's right, or not Trustmark?
Robertson.
Robertson
Oh, Robertson Bank.
Where the stalls were kind of split like that, and so they were mandated that since they were sharing city right away, that they were gonna remain public as well. Is that kind of how you guys viewed those, or?
We don't have any trouble with those being public spaces.
So let's talk about that first. So we have had plans on, I guess, our budgeting cycle for
3 years.
to go through and complete the improvements on Ray Street. After we one way to do the safety issues, the intersection, the pedestrian safety that's on that street, the lighting safety. And if we look back to the master planning we did for downtown, this is one of our primary connectors between the business district and on Central and 18th Street. So while I do acknowledge you guys did a good
comments. I think it's important from a sidewalk standpoint along that corridor to not have it disjointed like that and come into the development. I think that the improvements will engage any development along that corridor and be a huge positive. But I think that changes like the walkability of it by having it come in like that. I mean, I don't think it's worth having, you know, Engle Park.
Yeah, 'cause
I know
nobody-
it's not that far, but it's, I mean, if you just look at, I mean, you're in a downtown Homewood corridor, you know, you're not in a suburban, you know, out parcel. Well, I mean, I guess we're suburban from the standpoint we're not, you know, a major metro area, but, you know, I think it's best practice to have that be a consistent sidewalk along the street versus it, you know, dog-legging it to a development.
I think the gain of more parking spots compared to the parallel that we have on the streets not worth the reduction.
Yeah, I do a lot of walking in urban environments. That would not bother me at all, but I hear the concern. We could look at turning. Cale, I don't know if I've got. I think you supplied those drawings to me. I'll take a look at that.
So there are parallel spots right there in that same area with our design. The real question is, do you pull the sidewalk in and gain, what, 2 or 3 spaces?
Well.
But at one, versus the parallel spots.
Yeah, probably that too.
And it's probably about 2 spaces that you're gaining.
No, actually.
By pulling it in.
That's 1 space there, there's 2 spaces, that's 3 space. You're gaining about 4 more spaces doing this.
I think
Well, wait.
when we.
How many spaces you got there?
I got 7.
Okay.
If you look at this, that's 9, 18 feet there, 18 feet there, and 18 feet there. You're gonna have about 3 parallel spaces versus the 7 that I'm showing.
That's
different,
different.
4 different.
Because you're in the planning phase with your project, and you're about to bid out in the next couple of months. So I feel like you can accommodate what you're planning to do with your design.
And it has been, I mean, this will be coming up the
Years.
4th budget cycle that we've been talking about this plan. Yeah. And it gives you more opportunity to put more landscaping in there because, you know, you'll have more earth between the sidewalk and the building, right? And more landscaping, more greenery.
Like you could, that pretty little island right there could be
That's right, do it the whole way,
It's
exactly.
bigger.
In
Like
that-
that,
Yeah.
Do you have parking requirements in this zoning code related to
My
this?
understanding is that the uses have not been determined yet, so the parking requirements can't be determined yet.
We looked at a retail use and it provided for the restaurant. We call out a restaurant and we applied the code for the restaurant use and the square footage that we're talking about in the site plan, and we have the rest as a retail uses of the parking. And we're showing the on-street parking, the off-street parking that we have, like the surrounding parking that we're talking about in the right of way versus and on site meets the code.
So you're including the public parking
Yes,
as a
sir.
requirement.
The
Yes,
public
sir.
parking that's by the dentist office?
Yeah,
That's what I'm hearing.
And that area that we were just discussing.
So in the city, or have we decided about this road that's not currently there?
That's what we're talking about right now.
Right, but I mean, whether we think that's a good thing, in general,
Well, we're
to
talking
open it
about
up?
right
Yeah, so
now.
that's where we are.
Yeah, that's why
So
I said the one way.
road is on the books, right? It's on they're not creating a road, they're a right of way. This was a right of way that was designed to be a road right there.
It just never has.
It's never been built. Whether or not that's a good idea to build it now is what we're talking about now.
And that's
Right,
fine.
well, I didn't hear that question asked that way. I heard it asked, you know, do we like this design and do we like these parking spaces?
Well, that's why I asked about the ravine, because that's part of this, is they have to fill that in order to make it.
Yeah, so does
suitable.
our engineering group have any thoughts about that? Or is there anything to consider from a city perspective about?
Whether the road is viable.
Well, just, I don't know, drainage downtown, is there, I mean, this is a lot of concrete where there's currently a lot of.
As
Well,
far as
it's already
stormwater goes,
concrete,
I mean, I
except for the
tried-
ditch.
Well, no, the gravel area, all this that we're developing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get, this is only preliminary. Mark will put a full design package together for stormwater and silt and all
Any
that.
development has to have no adverse impact.
Right.
Well, he
Yeah.
just said, I think you said that y'all plan on doing some sort of underground
Yes.
retention.
And it's not
And
a.
we'll review all that stuff, but.
Yeah, okay.
But that, and my main concern, I mean, of all the things, was the ravine and then the two-way. I just didn't ever see a way that the two-way street right there was gonna be viable and work and be safe.
I think we resolved how we can handle the ravine. I think the two-way we have to take a look at on the roadway right here. And what I'm hearing, that's one of the things that we're gonna have to do.
Then we wouldn't make a motion, I mean, it's not a committee, but then we wouldn't make a motion and vote tonight, right?
No, I
Wait
think
until-
it has to be carried over for,
From what I'm hearing,
Lots more
is
discussion.
it would have to be carried over to get that information and any other information that people want.
yeah.
Well, and what about just not doing that road, just taking that out of the whole picture?
We've thought about that. In the beginning, it's a very expensive road, huge retaining walls. And when Reese Street was two ways, you still had some access, but now that Reese Street is one way, you really just killed that. If you cut that off, all you have is just a one-way in and one-way. It's just, I don't think anybody's gonna want to lease it for retail. That might be good for something else, but for what we want to do, it just.
But when you're
totally kills
opening
it.
up the, right of way on the other end to the alley, is that gonna allow you some?
I mean, a little bit, but you have to be pretty smart, fair to navigate through that labyrinth, through everything. This needs to be for people who have customers, we have to very easily say, you know, I think we can make it one way, we really need to have access off. I would like for you to consider us having access off.
The view corridor that we get there really sets that off. That's why you see this feature city in this area here, trying to create a view corridor with some attraction to pull people down there.
I mean, it looks kind of dense from this area. I mean, I'm not trying to judge it, but it's a lot of density for that area. And, you know, what kind of parking, does anybody know what kind of numbers of parking uses that lot today? And where will those people go, once they can,
So,
you know?
are you talking about the Dennis lot?
Just that, no, the lot
Oh,
where
that-
they're,
Oh,
you know.
the gravel lot? I don't
yeah.
know the answer to that.
Well,
But-
I guess can I ask a question? So the drive, the southernmost drive access ingress point with the crosswalk, yep, right there. No, you had it, right there,
Off
yep.
the Reese.
I don't remember the Reese Street plan specifically, but were there parallel spots all the way up Reese Street, including through covering
Yes.
up that corridor kind of?
Yes.
Okay. I'm assuming you'd lose a couple of those spots to
For the
allow that.
entryway. I think so. I have to go back and look.
That's a
but,
better picture right there.
Because there's obviously one entry into that now that probably, but having a second one, I think we would probably lose a spot or so.
Okay.
Major development.
And then, I don't know that I heard an answer to this. Did the Maniscalcos, have they seen this or been presented with this? or-
They're seeing it today, just like
Yes,
everybody.
yeah, cause we were.
But they're
seeing
not
it today.
here.
No, they're not here. They,
They're not,
so-
But we've sent it to them.
But they're getting it.
We met
I've
with
been
them about a month
communicating
ago.
with them.
Okay.
Mark and I met with him at the grocery and did almost identical, I mean, the site plan changed a little bit, this.
Well, we changed this quite a bit based on the feedback he was giving us. We have not met for the second time, but we did meet with him. He had concerns over his entrance right here, some utilities, how we would handle the drainage, just like y'all did.
Sure.
And how many spaces could we get here, maximizing his number of spaces.
Right.
So he was amenable to that?
He didn't let us get on his property survey, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, kick that
We
off.
wanted to survey his property, but we've surveyed the right of way and we did everything that we could, so.
I
Well, you
think
guys
we
can
should
go
give him a
survey.
chance to review.
Yes.
I don't think he's
He
had a
hasn't
chance
had a
to
chance to
review
look.
this, and talk with them, so I'd hate to speak for him one way
No,
or the
you're.
other.
When we first started, we met with Dr. Daniel, he was excited about it, he thinks it makes his property more valuable. And Dr. Goodspeed, I think the old dentist, had been there for, I think he built it, was
Yeah.
excited again, he thought it was a property enhancement versus just a culvert and woods behind him, so I think the only objection I heard from Maniscalco was really just he wants his park, he wants 10 spaces, 10 spaces. So he's gonna have to improve the right of way too.
Well,
He
and,
wants
and so,
10.
and that's the so there's another, that leads me to another question. So, in y'all's plan, if y'all do the one-way road in, does that mean y'all are going to do all the improvements for that area with the striping and the parking spaces? That would be everything, okay?
Those would be public parking.
But then they would still be
Yeah.
our spots, cause that's in our right of
Yeah.
way. But y'all are factoring those into
Yeah.
the number that you need for this.
That's right, that's correct.
Right across the street here,
Just
we
to-
call that Caliber, a friend of mine knows that, he can improve that parking space, it's public, but it's right in front of, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Just to clarify something, you just said, you
said you were gonna factor those parking spaces into
The development.
the development. And I guess my question is yes, is that only factoring in the gain from what's there now? Because there are parking spaces there now, so it seems like to be counted for the development, it would need to be
Well,
in
can I-
excess of what's there now.
I'll weigh in on that.
Okay.
The spaces that are there now actually
Are not
don't meet
considered.
code. Because there are spaces that are right there, they're straight-in spaces that face the dentist office, but then they've got spaces down on the end which actually block the right-of-way, and spaces across that there's not enough distance between the other spaces for backing out purposes, so those spaces essentially aren't, they don't meet.
Right, it's just kind of a free-for-all.
It's just a
Yeah.
hodgepodge.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
went on right away without approval.
Yeah,
And all
so-
the ones in the back, I mean,
None of that parking
answer
is-
that, all that's on private.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. I don't think you can do an apples to apples thing, because the ones that are there, if we went in there and didn't, they wouldn't exist like they are anyway, because they don't meet the parking space requirements.
I think Mr. Waltney had something else. Okay.
Just one more sort of technical question, and I think this is probably gonna be true regardless if you've got angled parking like that, but certainly if this is a one-way street, are y'all willing to provide an easement to the city that would allow for public
People to get
easement?
out.
So that, in other words, these people are coming in and you're envisioning them getting out that way. There's gotta be a public easement to allow them to get out of, we can't build a road to nowhere.
We'd have to do that then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that would be a problem.
We'll do that. It's, identify.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. That's a good point.
All I was gonna add was just related to the parking spots that we did, on the east side. Just thinking through. Mark, right?
Yes, sir.
Place, since you are in the conceptual phase of this, looking at the southern structure.
Okay, so let me get your south, okay? Is this south?
And that's
No.
north.
That's north.
So he's saying move the building closer to
Bring
the
the building
sidewalk.
forward and throw in parking on the other side.
Parking on the other side.
Really, the building's movement doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying, my concern with the sidewalk and the lighting that's proposed in the future, I was basically saying, take these parking spots that are on this north end, flip them all the way down toward the Bell Center alley, and you can adjust your structure as needed. I know you don't want to, just I'm sure you don't have a full set of seating yet.
No, we don't.
That was just my thought. Get that up to layout plan, right? Get that, you know,
Okay, that's a good suggestion. I appreciate that.
yeah, that's what, then you still get your
All right.
So let me summarize something.
Good luck.
I know I'm supposed to come back in front of y'all, and I hope to bring something meaningful to you. So as far as meeting with Maniscalco, if it gives you any feedback, please give it to us, and then we can reach out to him and talk to him. We don't have any problems working with the man, provided he's reasonable. And I'll say this, when he gets ready to submit a formalized parking, go back one slide or two. When he gets to try and submit a formalized parking lot on here that meets your code and your landscaping requirements and your setback requirements, it's gonna look a lot like that. Okay? Because you can't, you can park in gravel any way you want to. You can stack them up back and forth in front of each other and beside each other all around. You can get people to move them and bring them back out and things like that. But when you formalize it into something that meets your current zoning codes and ordinances, it's gonna look a lot like that.
But
okay?
it doesn't have to be a street that goes all the way through.
It could be dead-ended right there, obviously. It sure could, yes, ma'am. I won't argue that.
But then,
But-
then we go back to the discussion about coming back on central
Oh, they can
direction anyway, so.
Well, then you come back to exactly the central question about coming back to the central, okay? So, you're looking for us to relook this area here, okay? Relook this area here. You want us to recognize the street projects that you already got so that can move forward without impact from us. We want to make this one way in and see if we can maximize adding more parking, some more parking on this side. What else are y'all interested from us?
If I could just throw something out, I would love a little more green, just some green.
Well, you're gonna get more when we do this, I
Please,
promise you.
Just make it green. I mean,
Green that they maintain.
Okay.
You go
You're on the private property.
That's not green that they maintain, not.
If we modify this front, which we are going to have to for your project here, I'll look at the building setbacks, things that we can do this way, and see if we can't pull it that way, because I think it would be an interesting thing to move that back, but we'll look at that.
I think the other thing that got brought up to some degree was drainage and impact on it.
Drainage issue's gotta be addressed from the engineering standpoint.
Okay.
It has to
be the development plan.
Yeah.
Right, it has to be
Mark will
neutral.
take care of that.
Okay.
I'll point out one thing. The parking count and whether or not they get credit for it or whatever, we don't do that. That's the BZA, because it's a variance.
So it really can't.
If
So
they
just-
need one, right? If they need one.
If they need one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that discussion has come up a couple of times.
Sure.
We don't have the ability or the authority to approve that. So that has to go to the BZA. If you end up not having enough parking spaces, or you need to count the public spaces towards whatever, that's a BZA issue, not an us issue.
But you gotta get past whether we can
You
do
do,
this.
you do. I
whether we
just,
can do this,
just
whether
wanted to
we
make
can do
sure, I just wanted to make sure that when you come back to us, that's not,
It's all
you know,
clear.
that,
Yeah.
we don't
And-
have the
and,
ability to hear that.
We've had conversations with Kale and whatnot, we understand that we're looking at this as the first step, because if we can't do what we're showing on here and come to an agreement where you guys can recommend what we're seeing out here, then we may not have a project, and all those variances and all those zoning things that we might need or might not need don't mean anything at that point, so. We wanna try and get our on-street, our public improvements approved, so that we can move forward, and obviously, we've got some site plan changes that we need to get right,
Well, thank y'all for listening.
So when are we back? Just let me ask that.
2 weeks from today.
Yeah,
2 weeks, perfect.
Yeah, because
Right,
it'll,
I'm sorry.
y'all
Yeah,
will stay on the agenda.
well, I mean, we need a motion in a second, but it sounded like that was, or I guess we don't, we just.
No,
you
there's
carry
just
it,
carry it
carry
over.
it, or we'll just carry it
There's no
over.
motion, there's just a carryover.
So you can do this for not writing any of this down and probably remembering it.
I can remember this till tomorrow morning, and I get it off my brain pretty quickly. And whose is this?
That's Wyatt's.
Wyatt's. So we will plan to carry this over, to the next committee meeting, which will be July, what is that?
No,
August first, yes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, last item, hopefully, new business, 010722, request for permission to work within the right of way on 29th Avenue South in front of PNC Bank. Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith?
Oh, I'm sorry. They let me know today that they wanted to ask to carry this.
All right, we're carrying that one over, and we stand